Through 8 o'clock tonight. It does look like that's going to be extended through the overnight hours. The tornado warning that is currently on the ground here for Bradford County. This is that same cell that we were watching here as it was a little bit further to the south, the Waldo, the one that was near Shanks. So this is that same complex, and we're seeing the same thing here as we watch the velocity. Let me clear the way here, and we're still seeing this pocket where the green and the red are coming together. Even another one of our products here that's in the periphery was pointing to the fact that there's the potential for either some really strong wind like what we're seeing there at 50 miles an hour. We're still not seeing the couplet as it comes together with what would be some really strong wind. And the last couple of our tornado warnings that we have watched and monitored have expired early. And this one kind of has that same signature. In the background, I also have some tools that are running that if there's rotation, it would show an icon that would give us the idea of where that rotation would be. Head back over to our debris signature and let me clear out of the some of the dBZs that we were seeing, the decibels, and you can see that that pattern isn't even as smooth. And what I'm talking about here is sort of the orangey colors mixed in with the purples and the burgundy-ish kind of colors there. Not an even spread, and that kind of looks like what it would be if we were seeing some of the straight line winds coming through. But there's that same stretch. So here's that area in green, and I was showing this as we were tracking the first round of storms as they were to the south. So what we're seeing with this marker here is showing us that whether it is the increasing of wind with height and or the veering of wind, we're still seeing the marker here, which is known as shear. And shear can either be directional shear where it changes with height, changes direction, or it can be where we're seeing the wind coming in out of the east and southeast, and in the mid and upper levels seeing the increase. So that's why we see some of these streaks as we get a little bit closer here to Brooker. I'm going to head back over and we'll take you into where we're going to see that particular cell. And we're going to do it the way that we've done here with the last couple of this tornadoes that we were tracking, and that is using this, we'll call it the couplet signature, even though it looks a little bit more like it's still straight line winds. These are still some of the strongest winds, folks, that we have tracked as far as the storms, where the others were combined getting upwards of about 50 miles an hour, 25, 25, 27, 29, things like that, close to about 50 to 60. But here we're seeing a whole line, and it's pretty well defined as we are just to the south of Dana here. So let's go in, and I'm going to take you in and see what we get some of these streets to pop up. We know we've got Dana up here to the north and over towards southwest 51st Street. See what's going on with my clicker is only parts of my toolbar here appears to be allowing me to move my maps around, but we're seeing the strong. So let me step back over and take you in via the mouse and the clicker this way. So we'll zip in, and let me clear this out. And this is because we were doing some queries, which is why it wasn't working. So there's Dana. This is southwest 51st Street and over toward, looks like southwest 131st Lane. That's going to lead us up to and around areas of 52nd. And then State Road 121 is going to be one of the more major of the roads there between Worthington Springs, Dukes, and over toward Dana. So what we're watching right now, folks, is this area right, well, now that the update just came through, this is it here as it's splitting the difference there between Worthington Springs and to Dana. I'm going to move over to my other radar here or my other computer that's running in the background. So this tornado looks like it is radar derived of what we're seeing here so far. So we haven't had any eyes on these, but the signature, just like what we're seeing, is showing the wind. And at 58 miles an hour, we get into severe wind, severe thunderstorm criteria. And so far, even with what we've been tracking, and you see that the green is now void, this looks like it's more of another straight line wind here that's coming through. But this one could be doing some damage at 40, 50 miles an hour, even the leading edge of it, as you see there, 48. So look out around the areas around Dukes, and you might even be getting some of those big blasts coming through at Dana, and just to the edge here around Worthington Springs, starting to see your wind pick up near State Road 121 to about 30 miles an hour. We'll look to see if this one goes the distance. The last one that we tracked, and it took us all the way to the edge of the warning box, is just about the time that we got the notice that they were going to allow it to expire. So the cells that we're seeing, just like the last two that we've tracked so far, we don't have any lightning associated with these, but what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of grab that southern part of the cell as it's moving through, and we'll do a timeline between Dukes giving up just about a minute here. You've already got the rain over top of you, Brown 13, Miller, and then over toward Brown still anywhere between 16 to as much as 28 minutes. And once again, the areas that we're watching here are into parts of Union County, and that is going to continue through 7:45 at 7:31 right now. So about another, 14 minutes or so we'll continue here with this tornado warning. Just going over and checking my other applications here that are running in the background to see if this expires early like the last couple. The boxes did go away on those that were allowed to expire early. And what I was watching here with one of the other products was showing the potential here for the wind, and the wind side was starting to move up, and then all of a sudden the tornado side started to, but we're still not seeing any of the icons that are associated with it. And what I just did here in the background is turned on some of the tools that actually track our thunderstorms. Let's see if we can get some of these to pop up. They are the red lines that you see there, and those are our skits, and basically they are markers for areas where you need to start watching a storm. Sometimes they'll actually prelude what we'll see here for the severe storms, but you see we're not seeing any of those right now. And the other thing that we're not seeing a lot of is the lightning that is often associated with these. So our time and our distance here, if we take the leading edge, which is almost now out of this watch box, and we take it to the north based on its given speed, this is going to travel pretty quickly here across about 10 miles. So even though it's not loaded with a lot of lightning, the potential here as it comes through with some of the gusty wind will take us up to and around Mason, Ebenezer, and staying just to the west and south here of Lulu. Let me clear that view out, and we're going to go back into our velocity. And that same little, and there's some green that's showing up once again for Worthington Springs. So when you were with me here just a second ago, we didn't see any of the green. And if we reach back into it, we're going to see pretty light winds. But this area here really looks like is what we have is the crux of the reason that we have this tornado warning with what will be these 40 and 50-mile-an-hour blasts coming in, even ahead of something that doesn't have lightning. And oftentimes we'll hear the distance of the thunder and or the lightning, and that's something that'll maybe make us look up, maybe check our Weather Authority app. Here, we're not getting the fanfare of the lightning or the thunder that comes through, so that could potentially be leaving us here with a storm that kind of sneaks up on you, and the fact that, you know, it's not giving you the noisy warning ahead of time. This is the area that we continue to watch. I'm just zooming out a little bit here as we get back into some of the rural areas. We'll pinpoint some of the streets here, but giving you more of a broad view between Brown and Millers. This looks like it's going to come right up there and split the gap. All right, let's go into a little bit closer here as we were tracking some of those roads. This is 111, it looks like, 111th lane. Another one here as you get to the southwest as these will be moving through. If you live in the area, obviously closer to Dukes, then you know these spots here as we'll cross through and then continue moving that bright red area. And let's see if we can go in a little bit closer and maybe get some of these others to pop up. Here's our tornado warning, by the way, that continues through 7:45. This is the box that we're in, which is why that just popped up. But we're not seeing many of the labels here that are showing up with that. And see if we can go ahead and just move this up here and out of the way right now, because we're trying to get to the street so I can give you better spots here between Union County where we're seeing some of these at this time. All right, so the bright red is now widespread. All of the wind here that we're seeing is moving in one direction. The green, you can see where it's starting to separate again from this area of red. That swath, though, that continues will have this damaging or potentially even some of the damaging wind, as well as clickety-click, going back over to our radar, some of the heavy rain and the heavy local rain that continues. Some of the heaviest that we've seen thus far has been to the west of Highway 301 and closer to I-75. As a matter of fact, areas here for our coastal zones, and the reason we haven't talked much about Duval County or even into St. Johns County. St. Johns County, if I went back 6 hours, one lightning strike, and so far collectively here across the county picking up less than an inch of rain, and that's also continued into areas around Duval County. But it's the inland areas that have had more persistent rounds, whether they've been strong to even some of these depicted severe storms with these locally heavy rounds coming through. And this is going to set the stage overnight tonight and then through the entirety of our Monday of what could be the potential for the flooding rainfall through these areas that we're tracking right now. is where we could see 5 to as much as 8 inches of rain and continue to the west of that. And those values continue to increase, especially as you move to the west and then again to the north. So the area that we're watching here as our watch box, or warning box rather, is kind of modified somewhat to our south, is almost completely outside. So here we're just between Miller and into Brown, getting a little bit closer, moving away from, I should say, Dukes. And there we go. I want to zoom in just a little bit more, and then we're going to swap out once again. Even in the colors for what we're seeing in the storms, not seeing anything that would be all that bright red, or even when it starts to get into the purple, we know that we've got the height of the storms and what could be the potential for some hail embedded here. That is still pretty vibrant and showing what would be 55, 60 mile an hour wind gusts coming through. And you can see where the green, now this darker one's going to take us to about 10 miles an hour, and the lighter one should be just a little bit weaker than that. So giving us what would be roughly about 60, 65-ish mile an hour rotation. That could be possible, but usually it's a little bit more evenly spread. So it would be like 50 and 50 or 30 and 30, something to those facts when we come to measuring, because it starts to make that circle. So it does still look like what we're seeing here is a lot of the straight line wind. And we can go back over to our debris signature here. Don't worry about those numbers. Those are just picking up from the colors in the rainfall. But we do have the streaks that are moving through. So under the gusty winds, there could be some debris that's still being carried with it, leaves, things like that, that'll be blowing along with the wind. And that's what's bouncing back here to the radar to give us the signature, although it is really light and kind of faded looking compared to what we would see if we had a solid debris signature. The other marker that we look for is any kind of hail, and you can see that that comes up absolutely vacant there. But we have had and continue to watch what have been the shear markers here, and that's the areas of green. So this is where we're showing you, and I was explaining earlier, it looks like a new tornado warning just popped up, and this is going to continue. That one that was reached the edge of our watch box has now moved on to our new one here. Let me go over to my warning map. Yep, we do have the new tornado warning. So let me give you the latest. We'll switch over to here, and I'm going to have to clear this out so we can see it. We've got the tornado warning now that is going to go through. This is still showing Union County. Let's see what this one said. Both of these are still showing 745, but this box was just added here. So let me step over to my computer and see what we have as far as this new warnings concern. And tornado warning area, this is through Union County, still showing 745. So it looks like what they did is just continue the tornado warning that had already started. Oh, I see. So it's moved away from that area of Union. So originally it incorporated parts of Alachua and Bradford, but it's mainly into Union County, and that's where the update is now, just showing us the Union County. So this is where we get over toward Brownsville and back into Florence. All right, on over to the radar, clickety-click, and we're still outside of the box, but we're inside of our new box right now. Brownsville over top of you right now, Southwest 2nd Street, and just shy of Providence off to the west and south. And let's see, there's that area. So we're just at the edge of the box where we're seeing what would be the strong winds here, and a number of these that are showing up. Let's see, this is just going to show our warning boxes. Let me come back over to our little sampler. Yeah, there, look at that, 55 miles. There's 60. This bright pink one right here should be higher, and there's 69. All of this being fairly well spread out with so limited in the colors of green, that would be a really broad area of circulation for something that would be tornadic. And we're not seeing the lightning, like I said. So I think, if anything, really strong winds coming through here that are going to be more straight line in nature, and the potential where we've seen very little rotation. These just might be down at ground level where we're getting the quick spin up type tornadoes, which is why it's sort of a weak signature aside from what looks more like a wind event as it's moving into the areas around Brown and then over toward Brownsville, and see how it's separated and kind of spread across both of those boxes. Basically, the first box that you'll see here, 745, that's for Union. And then as we move into the new box that just popped up, it's just largely going to be for Union County here as these continue. All right, so we're over top of Brownsville as we speak. This is moving fairly quickly. What we're seeing here via the radar is roughly about, excuse me, 30 miles an hour. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to clear out the view for a moment, and I want to put this into motion just so you can see what we're seeing here in real time. So we're going to go back one full hour, and and we'll let this play through. This is the area that we were watching. You can see where the two boxes come together, or the first morning box, and then you see where the two overlap each other. But that's just 1 hour on the loop, and that has covered some pretty good distance. And here we are with just a half-hour loop, and it's the same idea as these are blasting through areas around Worthington Springs, now starting to take aim and continuing there around Brown still. As far as the rainfall rates, like I was saying, some areas have seen less than an inch, and other areas have already passed 2 inches of rain. Talking about you over there into Columbia County, and with more coming through, that's going to add to what you've already seen there around areas of Lake City, and now potentially even with some severe weather coming through, as we still have these really strong pockets of wind that are showing up. All of this still being radar derived. There's our, let's move the map, 60, almost 70 mile an hour wind. This one's showing 53. All of that would be moving in one direction, but the interesting feature is the fact that we have the green where these two come together. And what it's showing is that right in this general area here is where we could have some rotation. Meanwhile, with the rest of these being all red, it looks like all of these winds are continuing to move away from the southwest and off to the northeast. And you can see with each update just how fast the wind starts to drop off. So we'll put on a clear this view here, and we'll put on some of the new numbers now that they have moved out of the old box and continue to move closer to Brown still. Showing, just as I was clicking on it, the update came through and it shows that weak wind. But there you are at Brown still not seeing a lot of the, in a normal signature, that green would not only be brighter, more vibrant, but it would be more connected all the way across the red that we're seeing. But these colors still showing 50, 60 mile an hour. So straight lines, nonetheless, still doing some potential damage here as we move through Union County. There's Brown still as these are going to continue. It looks like Providence, you're going to be just on the outskirts of what could be some of the strongest winds here. But if you've got friends, family that may be up around the southwest 2nd Street area. Let me clear that view and we can move the map a little bit. These are the areas that are going to see some of the strong winds, and these will be coming through momentarily. This warning continues, as you see here, through 7:45, trying to get some of these little highlighted areas, and as I get real close to them, they fade away, but this is still showing that southwest 2nd Street. Once again, if you're in the area, if you're in Providence, or if you're even back into the area around Brown still here, you probably know the area much better. Having an idea of where these are going to be heading and continuing with what will be some of the strong wind here. This is the view that we had just a moment ago, so we'll look to see, because by 7:45, what is here should be then beginning to exit our warning line, and you can see our warning line kind of moves up in and around the Dix Road area and lifts off to the north. But with the expiration coming up here in about 3 minutes, we'll look to see, is it extended, and or do they let this box move out? I will say that with the vibrancy and the fact that we have been tracking now for the better part of 10, the better part of 10 minutes anyway, we've been watching this one little pocket here with wind that continues anywhere between 40 to around 50, 55 miles an hour, and even as high as 60. And then it was off in the periphery just to the edge of this warning line where we found the one that was showing 69 miles an hour. Nonetheless, damage starts at 40 miles an hour and then continues to increase the stronger the winds come through these areas. For some of the other counties that may be feeling a little left out because we haven't talked much about you, that's a good thing. If we're not talking about you, if we're not focused in on you right now, it means there's just not a lot going on for those counties, as I was mentioning there for St. John's just a little while ago. We're going to be putting our focus here where we're seeing the rain, where we're seeing these storms, and where we have tracked now, what is this, number 3? Technically number 4, because this would be number 3 and 4 here that we've been watching. So we had Baker County, then we had the one in Alachua. Like I said, it was the same cells moving through the same areas between Shanks Waldo that continued, and now getting between Bradford and now into Union County, where we continue with the threat of at least some mild rotation, if not a lot of the straight line winds here between Brown still and lifting to the north. Here we are at 7:43 and change, getting ready to cross over, and I was just going to say we should have an update coming through any minute. It usually takes about a minute from what we're watching. The radars go through their process, gets back to the computer, and we get the update. And here we are, like I said, that this should be crossing over the box by the time we get to the 745 timeline. Still some strong winds coming through here, so it'll be interesting to see if another box pops up and they continue with what would be the potential for the tornadic activity. The rotation is absolutely void here with this one. The gray boxes are all showing either the missing information. Here, I'll show you what the wind shows up. It should be anywhere between about 1 to 5 miles per hour when we see the area of gray, and then getting into that lighter color of red, almost sort of a kind of an opaque kind of red, is usually somewhere around 10, but all of these are the same color, which now indicates that all of this is moving away from the radar site, so we're not seeing that return when it comes back to the green. Let me clear this view out so we don't have a bunch of errant numbers as they pop up. Turning back over to the radar here, and it looks like now at 7:46 that box is gone, so our tornado warning that was taking us hip through 7:45 was allowed to expire. Nothing else has been added to it, but I will say if you are in line here between Providence and lifting to the north, since we've already seen it and it's been fairly well established within this cell of having some pretty gusty winds, these are the areas that I would be watching for as you get in around the Providence neighborhoods and lifting off to the north and west, where you could see some of the gusty winds and undoubtedly some of the heavy rain as it moves through. Let me head back over here to our big view, show you what it looks like across the board. Light rain here for Duval, southward through St. John's, even into Clay and Putnam County. The tropical storm warnings continue. We've got some hurricane warnings, and those tropical storm warnings are also now posted into Jacksonville. We're going to have your updates. Oh, no, looks like we just got a fresh tornado warning, so stay with us here, folks. We are not going to turn you back just yet. This one's going to take us through 8 o'clock, so we've got ourselves another 15 minutes where we're tracking these. Same things that I was just saying apply, even though we're not seeing what could be the potential for the rotation. We're certainly tracking some of the wind that is strong enough. Let's see if the signature has changed at all, and we're still talking about everything being pretty bright red, but now we're seeing a couple of spots even inside of this particular warning. So if we come up here to the north and select these, we're going to be in the 40-mile-an-hour range, and these are the ones that have been closer to about 50 miles an hour. It's Columbia County here for the tornado warning, so go ahead and drop that banner until we get the Columbia County put in there, as it's going to be moving away from Union, or we need to split this, so let's go ahead and drop that for right now. So what we have, there's your tornado warning. I'll clear out the view so we can just go ahead and query what we have inside of the box. So here near Ebenezer, Murtis, and then if I get back to Brownsville, you'll see where it changes from Union, cross over the county line here, and we're into Columbia County. So we're still watching what is essentially still into Union with the updates. Where are we now? 7:48. So this will update, and it should put us almost here to the county line as the updates come through, and then we'll see the box modify a little bit as it will take us into Columbia. So the warning, by the way, is for Columbia and Union County. I just didn't want to confuse you with just seeing Union County there to the south, because parts of Columbia at Ellisville, Mason, I-75, 41 will see the potential for some strong gusts. I'm going to attempt here. The last time I went to do it, it was just when the update came in. There's your Columbia County warning. So as we go into our little eyedropper tool here and show you some of the wind, let me go ahead and clear this guy out. And that's what we need to get rid of. So we can come back over, clickety-click, there we go. And then to our bright reds, 49 miles an hour. There's our 55 as that continues. That was the one that was at 60 miles an hour. So what we can do, I'm going to take this, there we go. I'm just waiting for the update to come in. All right, so what I want to do is take that little area where we're seeing the strongest of the wind here, and let me just grab our storm path. I'm going to go into our bright red, and we're going to lift this out, taking the direction there basically of what is our warning box, and this is going beyond 20 miles an hour, but that's about as far as I can stretch it. Mason, Murtis, 12 to a 15-minute window. Ebenezer, 17-minute window, as these will be moving out. Looks like Leslie Wood area, southeast Leslie Wood Road, or lane rather, over top within the next couple of minutes there, as we're still tracking the strong wind that's associated here with our current click, and turn that back on, our current tornado warning, 57-mile-an-hour winds here. So we've been pretty steady in this grouping, anywhere between 41 up to as high as 60-mile-an-hour, 69-mile-an-hour winds here, just in this particular group as these continue. Let's slip the map back over here. So I got to clear this out here. So it'll give me back all of my buttons and tools. This is what we're watching. This is what will continue to lift from the southwest and then southeast rather, and then off toward the northwest. Yeah, there's southeast Leslie Wood, And then if that passes over those neighborhoods, here's where we're going to get up to around Murtis Road area. And that did show up there in our timeline that we just laid down. All right, swap back over. Let's get to the view that we all are more familiar with, and that's going to be the rainfall and just extending that. And you can see it really doesn't have that signature that we're normally looking for. It doesn't have any lightning whatsoever associated with it. We're not seeing anything that would give us the bow hook echo type of stuff. It looks pretty flat and generic here, but the fact that we're still able to find inside of our velocity that we're tracking wind and what could be some damaging wind at that once we get up to 58 miles an hour, as I mentioned in one of the other tornado warnings that we were tracking earlier. At 58 technically is where we get into severe, but at 40 miles an hour damage starts, and it does continue here through 50. Here's Columbia and Bass, and we're still doing the same thing. Some of the spots that are even ahead of this particular cell are still showing the wind upwards of 50 miles an hour, and you can see as we get outside of the area here and start to query anywhere else that we're going to be closer to what our sustained winds are, and that's anywhere from the teens to the 20-mile-an-hour range as the storms continue to go through. And I say storms, these are more downpours than anything because we're not seeing the lightning. In order to have the thunderstorms, one of the things that we need is thunder, and we need lightning for that. But we don't need those 4 tornadoes. You can have shallow top cells that, because of the atmosphere, 1, being incredibly buoyant, and 2, showing what we were talking about here just a little while ago with our shear markers, clickety-click, with our shear markers coming through, that we are seeing what could be directional shear. So it's a change in direction with height, and or it could be, let me clear that out, and then we'll come back over here to our warning, which is more important than our watch right now. But it could be with speed, so we're seeing speed increase with height, which isn't too far out of the norm, but this looks like it could be more directional, and that's why we're seeing these quick spin-ups that don't have the best of our radar signatures, but we are still seeing these areas that are harboring what could be some pretty strong winds. And the interesting thing that comes in behind these where this would be normally replaced with the green color here is we're seeing almost a void. So here's the big blast coming through, almost like what we're seeing would be the exhaust or the outflow here from some of the storms. So if we go to the leading edge, there's 57. That's pretty close to what would be severe. And then on the backside of it here, closer to Providence, is where we're seeing wind is light as 4 miles an hour. So that does have a little bit more of the signature for something that would be straight line. All right, let me move the map here, and in order to do that, I've got to clear this out so I can get back to my full map and tracker tool. I would say, given the path and the way that we've been watching this, Murtis and kind of scooting by, not to say you're not going to see some or hear some of the gusty winds as they come through at Mason, but it looks like this is going to be more for, say, Murtis, and then just based on the way that the box lifts off to the north and west there, that Ebenezer could also have some of the stronger of the winds here as they come through. The watch, or warning rather, is going to continue for another 7.5 minutes, 52 minutes after the hour. And as you see, this is going to expire at 8 o'clock. All right, Leslie Wood, we were talking about you here just a little while ago. You've got the higher winds that are coming through as we speak. And remember, if you do have any damage from these storms, make sure you report it so that it will show up not only in our system, but gives us an idea of what we're tracking may have indeed. If we get the damage reports, we'll know that we were on the right track here as we were watching these as they go through. Even though it may just be a radar-derived tornado warning that we're watching, we're still going to track each one of these as if we have something on the ground. And we definitely have something that is happening with almost 60-mile-an-hour winds. And like I was saying, we tracked some earlier that we're showing is high as about 69-mile-per-hour wind. And here between 34, 36, and as much as 57 miles an hour. That is enough to snap some tree limbs, possibly even tall and maybe older, weaker trees, take those down, outbuildings, things like that might be holding on by wood, rusty metal, and or rusty nails. This is the kind of stuff that may give them the little push that they need to come on over. All right, I'm going to move the map just a little bit here. This is showing Ormond Witt Road, just on the edge. You see where the gray is kind of moved into? So you most likely just had some of the wind gusts that have come through. Now they're getting a little bit closer to Mason, and you see where they're closing in, and they're just to the south here of Murtis. And what you're going to get ready for Clickety-click, let me turn that on, will be some of the wind gusts. That's 64 now miles per hour, 49, and in this, as we get darker colors, the wind starts to go down here, and there's 56. So easily seeing what could be some of the damage. But what we're not seeing any of the green, and these are going, the gray is basically following in the same direction. So this is where we kind of have that lull coming in behind what's the big gust. After the sideways rain, all of a sudden the wind will start to let up. But as we've been watching here via the radar, the rain does continue, and at times it is going to be locally heavy. Clear that view out. We're over top of Murtis and Mason now with some of the heaviest of the rain. I can see that our box is shrinking here, kind of following what we're seeing as far as the wind as it continues closer to 41 and I-75. And this is basically going to be what's left as it moves through. So we've got, what, 4 minutes? Or this is showing 56, but our other clock is showing 55. So we've got a minute difference in between. Either way, in the next 5 minutes, seeing what we've been tracking here, moving and then coming to the edge of the box. I was saying while we were watching this, hey, these winds haven't let up, and it's likely that we could see this extended, and that's what we saw there. So this, that would make number 3 now that we have. So it would be 1, 2, and 3, giving us the, we'll kind of count these just as one big group, but if we broke each one into warnings, then we're working on number 5 so far. The tornado watch that was set to expire at 8 o'clock, the wording is already there, and I do anticipate that we should have an update coming in if it's not already sitting in my computer. That our tornado watch, let's see what our timeline is now, it still shows 8 o'clock. As that gets to our expiration at the same time that our warning here is winding down, that should move, and I'm thinking that this is going to take us overnight tonight and into the start of our Monday. And I want to let you know that I'm going to stay here all night long, and along with some of the other folks here, so if any of the tornadoes or warnings are popping up, we'll be doing this overnight and into 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's where Mark will take over, and he'll be here with the rest of the morning show team as the conditions really start to get quite sloppy here as we look ahead to Monday. Monday is the day that we're going to see the conditions deteriorate through the day, ramping up here through the late afternoon and evening and all the way into our early Tuesday. Let me clear that out. Let me get rid of our tornado watch here as we've got the warning that continues now for another 3.5 minutes. And let's see if we've got the likelihood, and it looks like it here just based on the color, that we could see these extended. I mean, that's a couple of really bright areas that are showing up. The one is actually moving outside, but this is what we were watching here earlier when I was saying there's a couple of the spots inside. Let me pop up, get rid of you, turn you on, and we'll go up to around Columbia and Bass showing 40+ mile-an-hour winds. And then around that Mason area and Murtis, I've got a it's interesting when you grab one of the tools here, it kind of turns off other parts of the clicker so that they don't register. Still showing near 60 miles an hour now. Mason, Murtis, you are next in line. Get ready for what will be some of those gusty winds as they continue out near 41. And here I am trying to do the same thing with the numbers on the board. All right, clear that out. And now we can zoom in and move back over toward what will be the Murtis Road areas. These are going to continue that 50 mile an hour, 59 mile an hour wind here in Murtis Road and into the Murtis proper where we're going to see these. What's our timeline? We've got about 2.5 minutes left of our tornado warning. This area is not showing the rotation, but certainly that right there is a signature for straight line winds through and through. One big block, everything is red, and we're seeing what would be some of the strongest at the midpoint, some of the weaker here as you get to the periphery, and even this one compared to what we were seeing a little while ago is much weaker in the fact that we're seeing teen to about the 30 mile an hour winds, losing some of the vibrancy, even though we were seeing closer to Columbia and over toward Bass. Right back over to my tracker tool here. Extend it. Let's break this view out. We've got about 2 minutes even left of our warning. Let's see if this moves away. This is what we were tracking when I was saying out near Columbia and Bass that was showing wind almost as much as what we're seeing right now. I'm sorry, say it again, Ike. Let's see here. Actually, we also got an update in just now for the tornado watch that is going to go for coastal areas. We've also got a tornado watch now that looks like it's going to go through 6 a.m. for Camden, Charlton, Clinch, and into Ware counties. Yeah, it looks like all of our tornado watches are coming around. So let's do this. I'm going to clear that view out, head back over to our regular radar view. The tornado warning, I have not seen the cancellation here of the tornado warning. We have the tornado watches that the one that was going to take us through 8 o'clock was allowed to expire. And now we have, there you go, 6 a.m. So this is going to go overnight to 6 o'clock in the morning. And then from 6 o'clock, it's likely that that'll be updated again here as we look ahead. So this is actually, yeah, that'll be tomorrow. For the fifth, some of the warnings that we have actually take us well into next week, and they kind of do that so that there's a long timeline for the watches or the warnings to actually, in this case, it'd be the watches so that they continue well beyond what we have as far as our tropical approach, but those will turn off as the tropics begin to clear those areas. And for us, that'll be from the west with our last areas to the east. All right, the box is now gone. So this one took it to the all the way down to the minute as we track these through Union and then into Columbia County, but still here between I-75 and 41. We continue with what could be some of the damaging and strong wind gusts here as we get into Columbia County. Let me get that out of the way. Oh, that's a new box. This one just popped up. Let's see what we have. Stay with us, folks. Ike, we're still on. This one is going to take us now through 8:15. I was surprised that they let it go, considering that we were watching that area near Columbia and Bass and even that last pocket here with what have been a number of areas where we're tracking some pretty bold colors and some pretty big numbers here with the 50 and almost 60. This is all straight line. All of this is what we're seeing. I mean, this is the perfect example of everything being red in nature here. So it's going to be almost impossible to see if there's no negative sign showing up. So everything that we select here is just going to be the positive numbers. So moving away, but still showing what could be close to roughly about 50 miles an hour. I'm surprised, just based on what we're seeing here color-wise, that it's not a little bit stronger, considering that we now have another tornado warning that is going to take us for the next 14 minutes here. All right, so we're still into Columbia County, and it looks like this is going to be completely into Columbia now. There's the line for Union County as this will continue. Lake City proper, not under the tornado warning, but your neighbors here just to the south around Bass and Columbia, which is where we were tracking what has already since left those areas, and then even now is outside of the box. These are those areas that we were watching as they were moving away. So with that said, let me come back over here and into these bright areas. We'll just do a quick little pixel query. These should be somewhere around, yeah, there you go, 50 miles an hour. Still seeing some very strong winds that are even outside of the box. Everything being red is it's one direction, unidirectional here. So, and what I've just switched over, this is the storm relative velocity. So it kind of gives us which direction everything is moving. And oftentimes what you'll do in between, you'll find some minor discrepancies. So this is showing 45, and if I go back, it's showing 51 miles an hour, just the way that it does the calculations. But not too bad here for being radar derived, only having that 6-mile differential. Everything is still showing some pretty solid winds that would be coming through, even though in nature, we're not talking about a thunderstorm here. This is just some heavy rain as it is moving through parts of our northeast Florida zones and up to and along I-75. With the gusty wind, the rain coming through, I wouldn't want to be on 441 and or I-75 right now. Wipers are on high, the roads are slick, and you get wind buffeted from 50 plus miles an hour. 50 plus mile an hour wind, that's certainly going to turn that ride into something that could be a bit more uncomfortable. Let's zoom in here. I want to see what, moving just over to the west now of I-75. So technically when we get to the west of I-75, this starts to fall off as far as our viewing area. Our viewing area is more toward I-75 and off to the east. This is where we get into kind of the mix between that and over toward the Tallahassee market. But since we've got the warning, and we'll continue this until it's expired at 8:15, and then beyond that, after Columbia County, once you get over toward Suwannee, Hamilton County, and off to the west, that is definitely outside of our area. But tracking what is still going to bring in gusty wind and some of the rain impact here coming through the area. The rainfall, and we were talking about this just a couple of minutes ago, saying there's some areas that have had less than an inch of rain thus far. So we can kind of do it in two parts here. And we'll start first with the 12-hour look. And let me come back over here to our broad view. You can see St. Johns County. It has been just a light smattering here, even into parts of Duval and then over to Clay and up around NAS Jacks. But once you get to the river and continue inland, here's where those numbers start to build. And I was mentioning Lake City, and this is the same spot here where our tornado warning sits, where we've already exceeded 2 inches of rain. Areas around Alachua County seeing almost 3 inches. In Palatka, in the darker green, we'll see just over an inch, almost an inch and a half. But here for coastal St. Johns County, about a third. And then getting closer and just to the north there of World Golf Village, about a ½ inch of rain. And if I zoom in, I can find a couple of spots that equal about 2/3 of an inch or so, 0.6 of rainfall. So pretty light stuff. And if I'm not talking about your area, like what we're doing now and being focused here on our tornado warning into Columbia County, on days like today, that is typically a good thing. What we're going to be watching for, and it's not just right now, this is going to continue over the next 24 to possibly 36 hours and beyond if the GFS continues to come through. But we're going to be watching multiple areas here because of the radar staying active, and we'll always be going into where the potential here for weather to be dangerous and or disruptive. We'll be tracking that stuff first. So speaking of tracking, we're almost at the edge here. Same idea of this warning box, and this one's actually moving a little bit faster considering that we have another 10 minutes left on the warning to see that the area of red is about more than halfway through. So we watch this as the tail end here has shrunk closer to Ellisville. The next update should move it past Mason and over to Murtis and then keep us from that 441 corridor over to I-75. So here's where from the light rain to the heavy stuff, and again, we're not seeing any hooks, we're not seeing any bows. This is almost what you would see just in a garden variety kind of downpour, with the exception that we've had these areas that have shown wind, and we'll go back into our bright spots there, upwards of about 50 miles an hour. We were watching between Bass and Columbia. That's come down a little bit, about 43, but even if we go on the outside of the box, there's still 40-mile-an-hour wind. And take you back here to the corner where it starts to drop down to about 30. There you go, 39. And in our darker colors here, clickety-click. Clickety-click, there you go, into the teens. Damaging wind easily from 40 miles an hour and beyond. Even at 30 miles an hour, weak and or old trees, outbuildings, things like that can sustain damage. But at 40, 50 and increasing is where the damage and that wind load really starts to take its toll. Let me clear out of the view, back over to the radar. And the reason that I'm going through all of this at the same time, I'm also watching our lightning count just to see if there's any signs that this thing has, and I still have the tools on in the background, that if this was a stacked rotation, we would have these little cylinders that would show up, and with the debris, as we've used this a couple of times, yeah, that's pretty even now with the colors. So we're not seeing much of the wind load here carrying anything that would be bouncing back to the radar. Even on the outside of the box where we've been tracking some of the gusty winds, you see where it has that little bit of an orange color. When we have a debris signature and something that is verified that it's the strong tornado and it's on the ground, even in EF0, this color is, when I tell you that it's glowing, it is kind of like what we're seeing here just in the red there with our debris signature. It really starts to get that vibrant look to it. But what we're seeing, at least with the signature here, based on the color in the radar, does look like what we have are strong winds coming out ahead of, even though they're not thunderstorms, they're still storms that are packing a lot of wind in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range as we've seen, and then somehow or somewhat starting to subside as we get closer to the expiration of our warning box, which, by the way, is at 8:15 here. Makes the evening zip by as we continue to track those. There's 30 miles an hour, starting to see the colors as they balance out a little bit more, and these are going to keep us roughly at about that 30 to 40 mile an hour range, just based on what I'm seeing here with these colors, as the darker colors are back to the teens, and we're not seeing anything that is all that vibrant, and we're still not seeing anything that is showing the opposing wind. But you can see where I started the track, and that's almost to the edge of the box. I'm just going to step over here, do a quick check, and folks, that tornado warning has been expired, and that happened about 2 minutes ago here at 6 minutes after that particular box that we're watching for Columbia County, where it was started at 7:59. It then expired at 6 minutes after 8 o'clock. So I think that our kind of our diagnostics here on the cell were accurate in the fact that we were seeing something that was more straight line in nature that can still be damaging, but not rotating. So with that said, I'm going to clear out of the view here. We're going to turn back on our radar, which, by the way, you can find at News4JAX. We've got this up, and of course on our Weather Authority app, you can always keep up with the radar when these warnings are going off. And one last thing, our tornado watch has now been extended, including that of into southeast Georgia. Takes us overnight tonight and into 6 o'clock tomorrow, where it's likely to be updated beyond that, especially into southeast Georgia, and continue through a large portion of our Monday. We'll be doing the handoff at 2 o'clock in the morning. You'll wake up with Mark as we continue to track the tropics and what then should become Hurricane Debby. We'll have the latest when we see you back here at 10 o'clock tonight, and the next full update from the National Hurricane Center will be at 11 o'clock.